trying to. Oh, Lord. Meeting. Tonight, we have 4 different variances to discuss. If you're applying for a variance, it means you want us to take an existing zoning rule and change it for you or for your property. If it's granted, it stays with your property. It does not stay with you. So you need to be able to show us some reasons why we should be granting you or giving you this change in an existing rule. This is a quasi-legal event, so you will be sworn in. So I'm going to ask you now if you're going to testify, or you even think you may testify, if you would please stand and raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay, you're sworn in now. The meeting is conducted in the way that I will read the variance request. I will then ask Heather to show us some slides on it to explain the city's standing, what the existing zoning rule is that you're asking us to change. We will then call someone up to the podium to talk about why you want the variance granted. I will ask you before you begin your testimony, if you will please make sure you say your name and your address so that the court reporter who's recording everything can hear it. And then please talk into the microphone again, because we're all sound like mush, and poor Joan is trying very hard to record everything. So please cooperate. Now I might stop you in the middle and say, talk into the mic for occasion. We will then that's the public hearing. We will then close it and go into a private hearing, which is we sit right out here as the board and we discuss what we've heard. We go back into the public hearing. We take a vote and you will know immediately whether or not your request for variance has been granted. If it's not granted, you always have the option of going to the Court of Common Pleas. Okay? Okay. The first one is Noah Wagner, 717 Birch Street, has requested a variance to allow the construction of addition, an L-shaped deck that is 25 feet deep and 18 feet 6 inches wide at its widest point, which would encroach 4 feet 6 inches into the required 5-foot setback to the west. Existing lot of record. Heather?
Thank you. I won't reread that. So typically under the R2 single family zoning, section 150.16 bulk and density regulations, the side yard setback minimum is 10 feet. But in this situation, we do have a subdivision that was platted back in 1956. So it's considered an existing lot of record based on section 150.86 that I know you have seen before. So under 150.85, general requirements and regulations specified in this chapter shall be subject to the exceptions, modifications, and interpretations set forth in 150.85 through 150.93. Existing lots of record in any district where single family dwellings are permitted, a single family detached dwelling may be erected on any lot as defined in 150.03, 40 feet or wider of official record as of the effective date of this chapter, irrespective of the area of the lot, provided the owner of such lot does not own any adjoining property, and provided further, in no case shall the width of any side yard be less than 5 feet. So that's where that exception comes in, that they can meet the minimum 5 feet. Here's an aerial view of the property. And then using pictometry, we show you some different views of the property. Here's the front, one of the sides there facing west. Here's the rear of the property. And then the other side of the property facing east. Using pictures, here's the front of the property. Here's a view looking at the side of the property. And then here's more angled where they would wish to put that deck attached to that existing addition, the porch. Here's a sketch that was part of your packet. We tried to circle there showing the deck that they wish to place about 6 inches from the property line. We did not receive any phone calls or written correspondence after mailing all the adjoining property owners. I did create, or basically plotted, some variances that I handed out to you in that Coleman addition, which is the name of the subdivision. Again, just to give you an idea of other variances. I know that this relates to the next situation too, which happens to be Birch Street, which is ironic. They have an agenda with kind of two similar things. So I thought that might be helpful, but I did notice back on these other variances, the minimum side yard of 10 feet was being used. So I'm not sure if that was just a different interpretation at that time, of our legal counsel, but to me, it's fairly clear that we should be using the 5-foot minimum, especially because many of those houses there weren't built to be 10 feet from the side. So to me, it makes sense. So I want to point this out that these variances aren't necessarily apples to apples, at least when I went back and reviewed each one. So just a heads up on that. Otherwise, that is it as far as showing you the information I'm aware of, unless you have any specific questions. An advertisement was placed in the newspaper of general circulation as required. A site notice was placed at the site. The other notices posted by the Administrative Code were posted in the proper time and location. A letter was mailed, first class mail, to the tax mailing address of the owner and joining property owners. Therefore, all the procedural requirements for the hearing have been met.
Thank you. Mr. Wagner? Please state your name and your address.
Yeah, my name is Noah Wagner and I live at 717 Birch Street.
Okay.
So I wanted to apply for a variance on this property for the deck, mostly just to utilize as much property as I can for, recreational entertainment value. In the backyard, my wife and I moved into the property last year. And since then I've been trying to increase the property value and kind of make a house a home for us. And one of the best things we wanted to do is be able to utilize our backyard. So with that, we want to put on a deck. Because the houses are as tight as they are on the property, it doesn't give us a lot of space, provided we have to do the 5-foot setback. The deck would be a very, very tight area, and it would be tough for us to even use our existing outdoor furniture table and have seats around it. So really what this will do is butt right up against a 6-foot privacy fence that the city has already given us permission to build. So in my view, and in all, as well as speaking to my neighbors, it's not really going to bother their view any, because they won't be able to see it thanks to the fence. As far as access onto the property from the city, it's already a very small opening. I think it's 4 foot 6 inches on that side. The other side of the property actually has a larger access point. So if the city needed to get back there, that would be the place to be. And really too, it just keeps me from having to mow 5 foot of grass on the back side of the deck. So that's kind of what makes more sense to me. Otherwise, I'm just going to have to put grass or gravel down and really have a catch-all of just, I guess, a small walking base. So that's kind of the reason that I wanted to build it. It makes sense. If you look at the property with how the garage door backs open to it and how the existing porch ends up, it just makes sense to build it there. So that's kind of how I came up with the design to do that.
Okay. Anybody else want to speak to this request? Members of the board, do you have any questions for Mr. Wagner?
Any consideration to wrapping the deck around the back of the house instead of going right up against the fence? Just so you could adhere to the, what I'm trying to figure out is the hardship, I guess. I understand it's tight quarters, no question. But if we look forward in the future to you guys, maybe expanding your family or whatever the future entails for you, and you decide to sell your home, the next person that's looking to buy a home may not find that so appealing that the deck is right against the property line. So I'm just trying to create an option, just having the discussion. Any logic to wrapping the deck around the back of the home instead of pressing it right up against the property?
It is an option, absolutely. We're just trying to utilize as much actual yard space as we can. We just got a new puppy a few months back. And there's also a fire pit. It's not kind of depicted on this picture, but really right behind that screened in porch. So I'd have to do a lot of excavating of existing land that's already there to make that work. So really the design that came up with kind of made the most sense with how the property is situated, and then really the access to the deck as well with where the doors are at.
I have a question about the porch. On the sketch, it looks like it doesn't go to the edge of the house, but on this picture, it looks like it goes across, and I honestly can't remember because I was there, but I didn't notice.
Yeah, the porch is completely, I'm sorry, maybe I'm
Is it
misunderstanding.
completely behind the house, or is?
Yeah, it is.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
So you would have to put a deck right next to your porch, right?
Yes, exactly. There's about a 2 foot drop off from where the porch and the ground level of the house is to where the actual grade is on the grass. So it's already existing step down, and really this would be kind of a walk directly out access onto the deck.
Any other questions? Thank you, sir.
Yep.
I'll close the public hearing. Members of the board, comments?
No comment.
I guess my only comment is, I mean, this makes it tough when you've got a bunch of other variances that have been approved in that area. I just worry about future, I mean, again, another panel, just like ourselves, came up with rules to try to preserve property value in Bowling Green. That said these rules would apply to most properties in Bowling Green with, and there should be few exceptions, one of which is, you know, hardship, whether it be financial or otherwise. And my concern is if we just keep allowing stuff like this to happen, even though it's just 5 feet, I get it. And I'm sure the deck would be very nice. We continue to allow this type of thing to happen just because if you have nice people come and present it, then you may have an opportunity in the future for problems when you have people that don't appreciate decks going right to the property. I mean, there's reasons that we put these ordinances in place to protect the property value. If somebody came up with the idea that that's going to protect our property value. And if we just do that, we're undermining those rules consistently. Now, I just don't see for me personally, I don't see the hardship here. Is it inconvenient? For sure. But I don't see hardship. My comment.
Anybody else? Any other comments or suggestions?
I have another question, but he's gone. Can he come back?
Yes, you can come back. We'll come back and out of the private and come into the public hearing so that you can ask him a question, Rose.
It's really not that poignant, but when you come up the walk to go to the backyard, will you have to step up on the deck?
Yeah, there will be a step up
Okay.
there.
As I said, it wasn't poignant, but I was curious. Thank you.
Okay, anything else? All right, may I have a motion, please?
Also moved.
Second. Okay, Mr. Johnson made and Ms. Bob second, so
I
will
got it.
Secretary call the roll, please?
Okay, Judy Ennis,
Yes.
Hobie,
Yes.
Bob Waddle,
Yes.
Hess, yes. Matt Bosdorf,
Yes.
Right, your request for your variance was granted. You can step by with the city tomorrow or so, and planning director is at her desk downstairs. You get the necessary paperwork you need to complete it, okay? The next variance is again on Birch Street. It's Rick and Pamela Ketzenbarger, 726 Birch Street, have requested a variance to allow the construction of a 12-foot by 28-foot addition, which would encroach 1 foot into the required 5-foot side yard setback to the west existing lot of record. Heather?
Thank you. Obviously, very similar situation in the regards to the code that I will review again. But again, zoned R2 single family, so a typical lot would be the minimum side yard of 10 feet, according to section 150.16 bulk and density regulations. Again, in this situation, the subdivision was platted in 1956, so it does, it basically precedes our current adopted zoning code from 1975. So under section 150.86, existing lot of record, in no case shall the width of any side yard be less than 5 feet. Here's an aerial view of the property. Again, using pictometry, you can see the front of the home, the side of the home facing west, and then hard to see here with the big tree there, but the other side of the homes that'd be facing east, and then the rear of the property. Here's a picture of the front of the home, and then the side of the home, and then another angle of the side of the house where he wishes to put the addition. The sketch that was part of your packet, we tried to circle there, or you could see where the addition, he would like to place that. His application was obviously very clear, and he lists other variances. And again, I'll refer to that handout I gave of the variances plotted on an aerial map, just again to be helpful, I hope. We had no phone calls or written correspondence from any of the adjoining property owners. An advertisement was placed in the newspaper of general circulation as required. A site notice was placed at the site. The other notices required by the Administrative Code were posted in the proper time and location. A letter was mailed, first-class mail, to the tax billing address of the owner and adjoining property owners. Therefore, all the procedure requirements for the hearing have been met.
Thank you. Rick? I'm sure you know the drill, but you need to state your name and address.
Rick Ketzenbarger, 726 Birch, Bowling Green, Ohio, 43402. I will not bore y'all by going back over the letter that I wrote. There is one substantial change to it. After talking to my roofing contractor, we're not going to go with a metal roof. It turns out that traditional roofs now have the same 50-year guarantee as a metal roof and are immensely less expensive. I don't know what color it'll be. That's up to the redhead, but we're not going to do the metal roof. I can answer the question about the change in the setback. I can tell you over time, and different city attorneys' opinions change and interpretation. And so as a city official, you follow what your attorney tells you. So when I initially came in to talk about this, I asked Heather if it was 5 foot or 10 foot. So got clarity on the request. And so that's the way I phrased it that way. We're not promoting any kind of hardship, obviously. Hardships are run with the land. And there's no hardship that I can find with the land in any case here in the city, with the possible exception of an underground stream. There's been some people that have built houses with underground streams, and I know helped put together the GIS system for Crawford County, Michigan. There's no map that shows those locations, and so you could hit that accidentally. So we're asking in terms of the section of best community interest. We did look at putting the garage behind the house, which would have still involved an additional driveway going through the side of the house. Could be the area that says proposed addition out into the backyard, making a turn, and then putting the garage back there, which would have increased the hard surface immensely, because to have adequate room to turn, to make the turn, and then a T to turn back out or in, would have increased the amount of area, hard surface area, dramatically. So that's why we asked for the request that we did in the manner that we did. We don't know how the driveway is going to work. Everybody, I'm sure, looked at the site. The Director of Public Works suggested coming straight out. Well, as y'all know, the street does not come all the way out there, and there's also no turnaround. So until we actually physically remove the landscape mound that's there, we won't be able to lay out the geometrics of it. My wife and I both prefer to back in, and in this case, backing in is going to be easier than backing out. The mound's there because the original owner of the lot back in 1963 planted black locust trees. They grow very quickly, but they rot out and they kill everything. So we just simply hauled in a whole bunch of topsoil and created the landscape mound with the permission of the city. That will probably all be leveled out, because to bring the addition up to the level of the house, which is, there's going to be a lot of fill. I know some of y'all were in the backyard only because before the fence that the neighbor had, they kept hitting the post, and so the gate didn't latch. So I could always tell when somebody's in my backyard because the gate's not latched. But so it's kind of a area where we can't get anything to grow. Those pine, if you looked over the fence or back there, you see all the pine needles. It makes it very acid. We've tried and tried and tried, and finally just said, we're just going to make it the fire pit. So it's kind of a dead area for us. We will not require variance, but ultimately we're going to put a patio in back and move the fire pit out there. It'll probably be covered by a Costco cover greenhouse that kind of makes a screen porch. It won't occupy any more area than the patio, and it's included in my calculation of, I over calculated how much hard surface area we're going to have for you. I think the new driveway will probably be concrete. It probably will cause the removal of much of that stamped concrete sidewalk in order to accomplish it. Because I'm thinking probably coming off, the best is to come off the existing drive, heading roughly northwest and then making a gentle swing to back in. It probably will not be a stamped concrete driveway, although I'm not adverse to us coloring the concrete. I think it makes it much sharper. But the stamped concrete, you really can't run a snow blower over it. So you shovel it by hand. So it's really pretty, but it's a pain when we get a normal winter. I'll also disclose to you that outside the hearing, when the chairman got off the elevator, we exchanged highs. So, but we didn't share anything about outside of the scope of the hearing. So everything, the testimony in the hearing's intact. I will also say whatever y'all decide, we'll live with. If you tell us no, we'll cut it off a foot, quite honestly. So we're not here to cause trouble. We're just here to try to accomplish the goal to make that all work. So that's all I have, unless you have any questions.
Anybody have any questions?
No.
I must say that this is the most complete 4-page letter citing your request I've ever seen, so.
Well, practicing what I preach, because I've done some consulting in the last, consulting. I've done a lot of pro bono work here and in Michigan. And I encourage boards to get that kind of information, and I encourage applicants to give that kind of information
It was very
so that
detailed.
everybody
I
has
appreciate it.
everything in front of them.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here who wishes to speak to this request? Members of the board, do you have any questions for Rick? So actually, you're just asking for a 1-foot variance, correct?
Yeah,
On one corner.
On the one corner.
yeah, as I said, unfortunately, the survey shows that, and understandably, 1963, they twisted the house slightly. Had they not twisted it, or had they moved it over to the minimum setback, it'd be a moot point, but that's not a hardship. That's just a fact. I bought the house the way it is. I knew that, so we're just asking in the best community interest to improve the neighborhood.
Anybody have any questions or comments? Not, I'm going to close the public hearing, and the board, let's discuss.
Comment?
No
No
comments? Nothing?
No, ma'am.
Okay, we'll come back into the public hearing, and may I have a motion, please?
So move.
Second?
Okay, did you get that, Rose?
I did.
Okay.
Okay. Bob Waddle,
Yes.
Hobie,
Yes.
Judy,
Yes.
Matt,
Yes.
and Rose Hess, yes.
The request for your variance has been granted. You may check with the planning director to get the necessary paperwork to do it. You're welcome. I'm probably one of these strange people that really likes it. All right, the next variance is Rob Hall of Toledo Sign on behalf of the Wood County Committee on Aging at 140 South Grove Street. Has requested a variance to allow the construction of a 72-inch by 56-inch monument sign, which would encroach 7 feet into the required 10-foot setback for monument signs. Heather?
Thank you. As you know, the Wood County Committee on Aging has built a beautiful new building, and of course would like a sign to go with that building. But under section 150.66 outdoor advertising in B, I, M, and S districts, a monument or ground sign not exceeding 8 feet in height may be located as close as 10 feet to the right of way. Here's an aerial view of the property. Of course, the building's so new, it's not yet reflected on the aerial. There were several parcels at one time, and those have now all been combined into one, as you can see here. So using pictometry, again, still a clear site there, but it gives you some views of that site on different angles. And then here's a picture of the new building with parking. And you can see here, we just have a stake there where the right of way does end, which is pretty much right close to the sidewalk there. Here's another view of that stake, again, just to show you that right of way edge. Here was a site plan that was part of your packets. Kind of hard to see there, but essentially there's a little yellow line there that shows the proposed area of the sign and being 3 foot from the right of way. Here's a rendering of the monument sign that was part of your packet, giving you the dimensions. And then here it is, a rendering actually placed on the property, so you can get an idea there of where they would like to place it. We did not receive any phone calls or written correspondence after sending letters to the neighbors. An advertisement was placed in the newspaper of general circulation as required. A site notice was placed at the site. The other notices required by the Ministry of Code were posted in the proper time and location. A letter was mailed, first-class mail, the tax mailing address of the owner and adjoining property owners. Therefore, all the procedural requirements for the hearing have been met. I forgot to add one thing. They do have a wall sign that they're able to put up that is approved. So this would be in addition to that. I just want to make sure you knew that.
Okay, is there someone here from the Toledo sign? Mr. Hall?
Hello, I'm Rob Hall from Toledo Sign.
Your address, please?
Address is 140 South Grove. And what we were trying to do is maximize visibility for their signage. Currently where the sign would have to be placed, it would be almost totally covered. I don't know if I'm able to. I went out there today and I got some photos with my car parked of where the nearest parking spot would be. And I did a little mock-up of what the sign would look like. Am I able to give that to you
Yes,
guys?
please.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Sure. So as you can see, the sign is almost entirely blocked. And that is, we're at the very, very edge of the 10-foot requirement there. We also have had concerns with the location. If we were to put it there, possibility of being hit. There's no curb or anything there. It could be driven right on top of. The location we would be putting the sign, there are little parking blocks and everything. So if somebody were to try and drive forward a little bit, it wouldn't be able to hit the sign. So that's another one of the precautions we're trying to avoid. I believe that is it on my end.
Anyone on the board have any questions or comments?
The only question I have is more for Heather. Heather, was anything looked at in terms of, like we would look at a regular intersection, view, triangle? Was there anything looked at from that point of view?
No, there wouldn't be. Technically, it's not a corner lot. That's typically what we look at due to the code, having that visibility triangle.
Sir, this says that this is an illuminated sign.
It
Is
is.
there like a bright light on it that's?
Well, actually, they've got some, you can see it in the image there. The upper portion will be illuminated by that. And then there's a little electronic message center where the little area is where it says yoga. That's a little 2 foot by 4 foot electronic message center, which that was allowed by code. So
Where it says yoga
Yeah.
on there,
Mhm.
is that going to be, it's going to be changed
it's a message center.
electronically? So
It's just like the one you'd see out in front of the police station and just a much
Okay.
smaller scale.
Can I ask you, was there any provision for signage there in the original plan?
I'm not aware of.
Oh.
I don't know if they took it into consideration when they put that strip of land there, because really the only place that would even allow signs per the code would be that little area. I don't know if you can see the map at all. Is right where a parking spot is. I mean, right where we're trying to put the sign, there's.
I think that would be very distracting and also dangerous to be that close to the sidewalk. And I noticed that did you consider, like, when you drive in the main driveway, there's like a little garden plot. I walked it, it's about maybe 19, 20 feet, and there are about 8 little bushes in it. Why don't you put that sign
And
there?
Where
Right when you walk in on the left, it would be great. I mean, you couldn't miss it and it wldn't be
I'm not
distracting
sure on the
to,
property where you're.
think she's-
referring to.
I think if I'm interpreting you correctly, Rose, in the picture that you provided.
That's
us,
actually, that is the garden area that
maybe over there
that-
in front of that truck.
It's over by that truck.
Yeah,
right?
in front of
it
the
would, it would
truck.
be the same sort of situation. If you were coming from the other side of the road, parking would block off that sign. It'd be the same idea that we have there, just coming from the other direction.
But when you pull in, you would
I
see
guess
it.
I'd rather block the cars than have blocking the visual. I mean, not be able to see traffic coming when you're pulling out of the parking lot.
Oh, understood.
Has any thought been given to neighborhood concerns about,
Mhm.
there's houses that are down there, and that would be a sign that would be lit, and it would also would be changing its color in that it's changing the sign, the movable part of the sign.
On that, no, the sign is allowed. The build of the sign is allowed.
I was just speaking in
Yeah.
terms of where its placement would be in a, that would obviously cause some of the distraction that Rose is talking about.
No,
Hmm.
that we've been just trying to figure out the best visibility for this. I mean, we're trying to use this as a community center to get word out there and everything of events that they have going on, things that they have going on day to day wise. And using the electronic message center is going to be the easiest way of them swapping things out instead of having to go out there day after day using the standard changeable copy signs and things that. So
What's the maximum height?
8 foot was the maximum allowed.
So you could put it on a pole, perhaps? Is that an option?
That wouldn't be an option because if it's taller than 8 foot, it's considered a pylon sign.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you couldn't be in the front yard setback,
Yeah.
which is 50 feet in this institutional zoning.
Thank you.
Anything else? Any other comments? Questions?
No, I just think the building is so outstanding. Everyone's gonna know that that's the senior, center. And I don't think there's a problem with seeing that sign when you're driving by there. There wouldn't be a car in front of it.
Well, the image that I have there, that's a car parked right where that sign, where the sign is allowed,
Uh-huh.
that's where it would be. That's what the
I
sign would
know,
look like.
But if you're driving, eventually you're gonna see it.
You're gonna have, I mean, that's only about 3 to 4 feet away from my car parked there. So you're not gonna have too much of a window. Where the sign would be placed like that, you'd have to be driving from the other direction to see that. That's really the only way you'd be able to. That upper portion there, you'll only be able to see where it says Wood County Senior Center. You won't even be able to see the message center. My car, if there was an SUV parked there, you wouldn't be able to see the sign at all.
Is it, so does it sit back? It says here 3 feet, I'm reading this right, 3 feet from the right of
Mhm.
way back.
Yep.
The right of way, the edge of the sidewalk.
Yes.
Mm.
We actually have a little bit of leeway there. We would likely have it a little bit further back than the 3 foot. In the plans that we were given, it said that there was only 10 foot of space in that grass there. We actually have about 12 feet. And as of today, when I was out there measuring it, so we probably only really need another 5 feet, not 7 feet total. But right there where it is, it's about 4.5 feet off of the sidewalk.
What's the goal of the sign? What's the necessity of the sign? What do you hope to-
Advertisement, obviously. Everybody wants to have a sign out in front of there, especially with a newer building.
There's already going to be a sign on the building, correct?
It
is,
So that
yes.
the building will
I
be
don't know if you
clearly
guys have
labeled.
it. It's not an illuminated sign on the building, no. It's just a routed metal sign that says Wood County Committee on Aging. So no, it's not going to be really seen from the road. It's more so for pedestrian walking and everything. This sign is also going to be key for, again, like I said earlier, messaging for events and things of that nature. So being in the sign industry, we often see situations where churches and senior centers, things like this, where if they have the changeable copy signs, they go underneath little concealing boards and everything. Having to hold them up like that, constantly changing it out day after day after day, it can get kind of tedious. They're trying to go forward with this. Just looks wise, it's nicer. It's a nicer appearing sign. And it's easier for them to use for changing out for constant changes in events and things like that. So.
Anything further? Any questions? Comments? If not, I'm going to close the public hearing and we will discuss amongst ourselves.
Uh,
I think it creates a huge visual barrier and it's not safe when you're pulling out of that parking lot. That's my concern.
I agree.
I'm
Whether
not,
it's lit, not lit, LED, message flashing,
Yeah.
you're not going to see traffic coming.
I'm not opposed to a sign
Proposed
to indicate where the building is. What concerns me is all of the factors right now that are unknowns, like the distractions that it can cause, the placement, all these kinds of things that I would rather, delay my opinion on getting everything finished and cleaned up and then determine whether or not it's even necessary to have one.
I guess I would happen to agree with you, Hobie, on the sign, the need for a sign there. I mean, this building's going to be for residents. It's not like you're getting off the freeway and deciding you're going to come to the senior center. I mean, this is for our residents. If you're waiting to drive into the parking lot to determine what's going on that day at that location, then you probably not planned very well. So I guess I don't see the need for it. And I think it's in a terrible location. If you want to put a sign there, you can put it back where it belongs.
Bob, did you have something?
Well, I would say that in terms of for the use of the sign, I would appreciate seeing the events, advertising the events and seeing the changes in the events. Again, my only concern is the visual, I shouldn't say the visual, but the vision
Yeah.
pulling out of that drive. But again, if it doesn't really disrupt, or is it, and unfortunately, since it's not a roadway, we don't know if it's truly outside that triangle. And at this point, thinking about that setback and that far from the right of way, I have less concern about the triangle issue. I would prefer to have it set back, but you guys are obviously maximizing the parking in the area, so it leaves you very little options. So I'm concerned, but not to the point that I would tell them no.
I drove by Brookdale today. That's really set back. And there's no problem seeing that from Winter Garden. There are cars there. It's a big sign. And to have it sitting so close to the sidewalk is.
Think about the clientele that are going to be pulling out of that parking lot. Last thing I want to do is impair their vision anymore.
Are you saying we old folks can't see?
That's
can't see,
exactly,
Matt?
that is
what you're
exactly what
saying?
I'm saying.
I was going to say, I
When you're
just
done
said,
playing bingo over there, I don't want you pulling out and getting hit. I don't want you to
Obviously,
get
it's
hurt.
not talking about us.
I was gonna say, Hobie, I think they're talking about this end at the table.
I just hit a milestone,
road.
so
Okay.
I'm with you.
You just insulted your fellow board members here.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Anything else, or should we go?
Hmm.
All right, we'll come out. May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second?
I'll second.
Who's that?
It was me.
So you seconded?
Yes.
Who was first? Got it. You sound alike.
Okay, call the roll, please.
Okay, Judy Ennis.
No.
Bob Waddle,
Yes.
Matt Bosdorf,
No.
Rose Hess, no. Kobe Johnson,
No,
Your request for your variance was not passed. You do have the option, of course, to go to the Court of Common Pleas or continue to work with Heather to find something that will pass. Okay,
and I would encourage you to do that, please.
I would too.
Yeah.
The last variance is Brian Heil of Toledo Sign on behalf of Rosenboom Machine and Tool at 1032 South Maple Street, has requested a variance to allow the construction of an 88-inch by 93-inch monument sign, which would be located off premise at 520 West Gypsy Lane Road. Heather?
Thank you. So under section 150.66, outdoor advertising in B, I, M, and S districts, and the situations M district industrial. E1, no more than 3 outdoor advertising structures shall be used for each business or structure and must be located on the same lot or premises, except as provided in 150.65 for mall and arcade type structures, which will permit other signs designated the location of stores within a mall. So in this situation, we have an aerial view here, and we've highlighted the parcel that used to be Gordon Lumber that Rosenboom has since purchased that lot. Rosenboom does sit there to the north of that site on a separate parcel. And so that is a reason that you cannot have, the code says you cannot have that separate signage on a different parcel without a variance. Using pictometry, here is a view. This is actually, again, that would be looking north, so from Gypsy Lane, the front of the property. We are talking about the grassed area over there, which is not a separate parcel. I just want to be clear about that. It kind of looks like it is, but this is all one parcel. And again, using pictometry, this is here at the bottom of the screen. That's Rosenboom. That would be the green grassed area. And then, of course, the former Gordon Lumber and then Gypsy Lane there to the south. Another view of the property. This would be facing east. And then this would be facing west. Here's a picture, not a whole lot to see there, but there's the grass. And then, of course, Rosenboom there in the background. They currently have one wall sign, just so you're aware of that. And then again, the grassed area, seeing a little bit more of the former Gordon Lumber there on the left. Here is the site plan. It's really hard to see, but that was in your packet, marking that sign there. Another view of where they wish to place the sign. We did not receive any written correspondence. We did receive one phone call. We're assuming it's from one of the neighbors that just, got a letter and they were trying to understand the request and what that really meant. They didn't say they had an objection to it. Again, just had questions. An advertisement was placed in the newspaper of general circulation as required. A site notice was placed at the site. The other notices required by the administrative code were posted in the proper time and location. A letter was mailed, first class mail, to the tax mailing address of the owner and adjoining property owners. Therefore, all the procedural requirements for the hearing have been met.
Sure.
Brian Heil, 2021 Adam Street, Toledo.
Travis Reef, 2 Chelsea Court, Bowling Green.
Okay.
Heather, did you have a picture of the actual sign?
I don't think I
Good.
scanned that in. They have it in their packets,
Okay.
so,
they do-
yes.
they do.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So, yeah, the sign falls within the sign code, and I was kind of caught off guard. I didn't realize separate parcel. Rosenboom owns this parcel. It's adjacent to where their factory is, and I'd just like to place a sign along Gypsy Road for advertising and yeah, so they own the parcel, so I didn't realize that how the code, I guess I had to dig deep into the code to figure out if we needed to be here tonight.
I think it's pretty self-explanatory. Rosenboom is an active member of the community, and we're trying to make folks more aware that we're there. And we intend to use the sign to recruit employees. We'd like to hire more. We'd also like to use a sign to celebrate our employees and do recognitions for those employees, years of service and things of that nature. So there is another sign that's on the Gordon property that we've not used, but it's like 12 feet up in the air and it's a fixed panel. So it is actually closer to the highway or the road than 61 feet. But we've painted that black and we've basically done everything but remove it. So we just see this as a good opportunity to promote manufacturing in the community. Thank you.
I have a question. What's push through acrylic mean? It's
So
on
the,
it's on the sign.
Yeah, that's the copy Rosenboom. It's a aluminum sign, and then the aluminum's routed out, and then with some 1-inch thick acrylic, we push it through. So it gives the copy Rosenboom a dimensional feel, and that lights up as well.
Oh.
Plus, it gives you a little lighting on the background of the sign as well. It's just a neat neat look. Yeah,
Well,
we
you
do
certainly
quite a
aren't
few
doing
signs that
anything
way.
with visibility. I mean, it's not in any visibility triangle, so.
But there is a question I had about the depth from the road, if I may. Just so that I understand what you're asking for, when you say it is inside the sidewalk,
It'll be the
inside means
side-
north of the sidewalk or south of the sidewalk?
North of the.
North of the
sidewalk, yeah.
sidewalk, okay.
Hmm.
More onto your property than towards the easement.
Yeah.
Okay, thank
Right.
you.
You own the property. What's in the building? The
It's a-
Gordon, old Gordon.
Yeah,
building.
so Rosenboom made this investment for future growth. And right now the building is vacant.
Okay.
And so one advantage is marketing the business to the 5,600 cars that go
Yeah.
by there per day.
Mm.
So that's what we want to do. So the building is for further expansion and growth.
And I just want to go back and clarify, there is no sidewalk there.
Yes,
Yeah, it does say
Um,
that
I
you
understand,
right-
but there
the-
will be, so could be someday.
There could be, but just to be clear, it has to be 10 feet from the right of way. So that's why they put 61 feet on there, because the right of way there, the full right of way is 100 feet. So half of that from the center line is 50 feet plus the 10 feet. So they want 61 feet on the, just to be safe.
Hmm.
So I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah,
They
I
do
just, the only reason I asked that question was sometimes we allow in vacant property installations of signs, and then later on when we're going to put a sidewalk through, we have to have a sidewalk that bends or,
Oh, absolutely.
you know, so I was just trying to clarify.
Yeah, definitely. And there is a sidewalk up to
The
that.
sidewalk,
newer
the
building.
adjacent property,
Yeah.
if you continue that straight line, the
Yes.
sign would be
Yes,
behind
that's-
it.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I don't think there's anybody else here that would like to comment on it. If not, I will close the public hearing and the board can discuss it.
I have nothing.
Discussion? Okay. We'll come back into the public hearing and may I have a motion, please?
So moved?
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Will the secretary call the roll, please?
Matt Bostor,
Yes.
Yes.
Rose Hess, yes. Judy Ennis.
Yes.
Toby Johnson
Yes,
and Bob Waddle.
Yes.
Your request for your variance has been granted. And then I would say the same thing to you that I said to the others. Please check with the planning department to make sure you have the proper paperwork to proceed, okay? Thank you.
Thank you.
minute. You get the minute?
I will do the minutes. Yeah,
okay, I'm sorry.
I'll do those last.
I'm sorry.
Okay, the last, before we go into lobby visitation, we need approval of the minutes as mailed.
So moved.
Second,
Second,
all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Opposed, same sign. Minutes are approved. Is there anybody in the lobby who would care to visit with us?
It's loaded.
Would you like to visit with us?
Mhm.
Seeing no one, I will take a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
All
Second.
those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 So carried.
Thank
Okay,
you.
guys, don't you leave until you sign your paperwork.
Right.
Oh.